Hey, folks, Quillian here, and welcome to an episode of our Learning Godot series, where we are trying to remake the classic Asteroids game, or at least, as close as we're going to get without breaking our skulls open. We are currently going to add some shooting to our game, because we've got a lot of the core gameplay in place, right? We've got the ability to move with our spaceship, we got asteroids that are buzzing around, and when we bump into the rock, we die. Well, our ship gets despawned, and a new one gets spawned in. We're not keeping track of hit points, or I should say extra lives, or score yet. But next thing we're going to do is some pew pew. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's go back, I guess, to our player script. And obviously, we are going to want to be ready to shoot some bullets. So is action pressed fire? All right, we have a fire action that is mapped to our spacebar. If you haven't seen that in a bit, under project and project settings, input map. There we go. Right now for spacebar, I have the fire button. Maybe you want to map left control. I don't know. You can, I suppose there's no harm in doing it. There you go. Left control has now been mapped to the fire button at the same time. Seems like a decent idea. We've got some options. So if this is being held down, we're going to want to shoot. But obviously, we're going to need some sort of cooldown mechanic, right? I mean, we could make it so that you shoot every time you tap the spacebar. I think that's much closer to the classic stuff, right? We're just mashing the button. I hate that. I want it to just auto fire while I hold down the spacebar. That seems much less frustrating to me. So we're gonna need a cooldown system rather than just how quickly we can mash the button. Although I suppose the other way does reward people who are just more willing to like obliterate their tendons, but I'm not one of those. So we're gonna do. I guess it could be a constant, but we'll do it as a var because who knows? Maybe you get a power up that changes your cooldowns. So we're gonna have a fire cooldown value of, I don't know, how quickly can you shoot? 4 times a second? So 0.25 second fire cooldown? This is the way I tend to do this, and then I have the equivalent fire cooldown remaining. I tend to do it this way, and then what I'll have in my code here is something like, if fire cooldown remaining is, say, less than or equal to 0, and the action button is pushed down, then we will do shoot over here. In fact, what we'll probably do is have a function, do shoot bullet, or something like that. I'm pretty inconsistent with my function names, I suppose. But we'll do this. Do shoot bullet. And then we're also going to want to make sure to set the cooldown. So what we're going to do here is, so this is every update, we're going to want to subtract the amount of time that's gone by from the cooldown remaining. And if we're actually shooting here, we're just going to set our cooldown back to the base. So we're going to reset that like so. Oh, shoot bullet doesn't have a function. That's why we're getting that error. That's okay. So what's going to be involved in shooting the bullet? Well, we're going to spawn a bullet icon. So first we need a graphic for it. And I'm going to go once again to the well of awesome that is Kenny's Space Shooter Redux. And I'm going to grab the laser effect from there. So I'm going to say, what kind of we want the laser? Red? Laser, red 1. I'm going to pull that into the graphics over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new prefab so that we can shoot some bullets. And for the player and the Asteroid prefab, what I did is I had just gone and set up the nodes here as a child of main, sort of developed everything, and then at some point saved the branch as a scene. Here, we're going to go and create a prefab from absolute scratch. So we can go to scene, or sorry, by prefab I mean a scene. We can go new scene over here. We can also hit this little plus button to add a new scene. So this is going to be, sure, it's a 2D scene, like the object we're working with is 2D, but we know this would create a node 2D, which might be fine as a base object. I propose that for our bullet here, our base object can be an area 2D. Area 2D is requires an area, like it requires a shape, and it's just something that can be respawned to being entered. It has a trigger over here for various conditions when things are entered that we can respond to, and that's what we're looking for. We don't want bullets to actually be physically enabled. They just need to move in a straight line, and if they happen to overlap something, then we will go and, well, presumably if it's an asteroid, go and destroy it. So we'll have the base object be area 2D. We're going to call this bullet, and then we're going to add a child, which is going to be a sprite for actual visuals. So we're going to take our red laser, drag it over there. Now, the laser here is kind of a longer straight line. I think I'm going to go and just scrooch this down. I'm going to hold Alt to do both sides. I'm just going to kind of collapse this down a little bit. make it a little bit of a square shape. Just to me, I don't know why it's going to be more appealing, I think, in this game. The area, we've got an exclamation mark because it does need a collision shape. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to add a new child node, which is going to be a collision shape. And then we have to define what the actual shape is. We've been using circles. I think for this, I'll just go ahead and use a rectangle shape. And I'm just going to go and drag it to kind of fit. There we go. Something like that. So that's going to be our collision looking kind of stuff. That's looking pretty good to me. What's interesting, I guess, with the area is because with your rigid bodies, with your collisions, by default, monitoring is turned off because there's a possibility you want the physics, the rigid bodies to just be like visually physicsy stuff that's going on in the world and not necessarily trigger script events. But as far as I know, with the area 2Ds, they're always on. Oh, there we go. There's the default. Monitorable and monitoring is on by default on both because the whole thing is like, there's no point to make an area, I suppose, if it's not being monitored. We're going to save our bullet scene, and that's going to be good enough for now. We're going to add a script to it certainly later. But for now, what we want is we want to be able to spawn it. So we're looking at player right now. So we are going to create a constant for bullet scene, which is going to be a preload of our bullet scene, just like that. And then when we shoot, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to instantiate a copy of our bullet. Let's save it for a second. We are going to want to add it to our scene graph, right? Where are we going to want to do it? We probably want to make it just a child of main. We don't want to make it a child of player because otherwise, by default, when the player rotates around and moves, the bullets will also then get moved around with it in a really weird way. So that seems kind of poor. So yeah, I'm going to say that we are going to want to, is it parent? Yeah, there we go. Get parent dot add child. So this is the parent of the player, which should just be this main thing over here. And we're going to add the bullet in there. Now, what else are we going to want to do before all that gets done? Well, I think the bullet should make sure to face the same direction as the player. So our bullet dot rotation is going to be set to our own rotation. In cases like this, I often like put the explicit self. It's not necessary, but it's like I want to be clear that it's like the player's rotation is being set to the bullet's rotation. So sometimes I will do this. I suppose I haven't done it anywhere else today, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way. And then, yeah, I guess that's it. It's not a physics object. We don't have to give it an initial impulse or anything like that. It's going to have to be responsible for moving itself in its own code. But if we go and hit play and hit spacebar, nothing is happening at all. But why? I was expecting to just spawn a bunch of bullets that don't show up anywhere. First, am I actually calling this function? I mean, it looks like it should. Yep, it's calling. Okay. We've got a preload of the bullet. We're instantiating it. Oh, but where? Where is it being instantiated? Is it actually showing up in the top left corner? There it is. Aha. Spawning as 0, coordinates. Never thought to set the position. Because I'm like, I did pause, right? For a second after the rotation, I'm like, isn't there something else? No, I'm sure we're done. I'm sure I did everything I was supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. There we go. So now we're getting bullets that are spawning exactly where ship is, and they are facing the direction of things when we launch it. Good. Okay, so I can get rid of this spam. We don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need this. So we're going to go back now, and we're going to add a script to our bullet. Right over here, we're going to attach a script. We'll call it bullet, inherit from area 2D. That's going to be great. What is it here to do? I guess it's here to find out, did we hit something? Oh, also, it should kind of move. Let's put in some sort of constant for our, like, we'll call it velocity. No, we call it speed. Equals, I don't know, 400 pixels per second. We'll see if that's too fast, too slow, or what later on. And then in our frame, although we will do it in our physics process, because that's what we're caring about over here. In our physics process, we are going to move ourselves. So we're just gonna use translate, because we're not using this physics engine to move ourselves. We're just, even though it's in the physics tick, we're going to move, which is going to be vector2 dot up dot rotated based on our current rotation, which is set when we spawn in, multiplied by speed, multiplied by delta. So first of all, we did that right. Our bullets are now going to shoot forward. You know what? That's not too shabby. They're spawning from the middle of the ship. We might want to move them so that they're a little further ahead of the ship. On the other hand, I got to say, this I'm sure is supposed to be the cockpit, but I can sort of see it as like a photon torpedo port. I'm not going to worry about the placement right now, but it would be very easy to change when you're spawning in from the player over here, the rotation or the position. You're just going to move it ahead slightly in the direction that the player is facing and have it spawn there. Or what you can do, and this is quite a common trick so that you don't have to write it in code the same way, in your player's scene here, what you can do is you can add just a dummy node 2D like this, and we would just move it upwards to something like here. See, it's attached to the nose cone. And we would just call this something like bullet spawn spot. And then in our code, what we would do, you know what, hell, let's finish this. Why not? Over in our script, instead of setting the bullet's position to the player's position, we're going to use bullet spawn spot dot position. Which is not working. Is this his local position for some reason? I'm wondering about that. Godot, not node 2D actually. I think it's the canvas item has got the position. Nope, maybe not. Maybe it is node 2D. Position. Position? Oh, relative to the node's parent. Yeah, it is. Okay. The transform. That's okay. That's really good information. The transform 2D. That has an origin parameter. Is that world? Transform. No, oh, that's quite interesting. Oh, hold on. It's because of the order this thing is being done in. Maybe not. Godot get world position. How to get a node's absolute position in the world. Oh! Global position. I guess if I just kept typing position in here, I would have seen, oh yeah, there's a property called global position. La 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 la. Boom. There we are. See, now it's spawning from the nose tip, right over where we put the thing. It is the origin of the bullet, so some of the tail is starting right on top of the ship, but I actually don't mind that. We could also change a few things. We could change the order that things are spawning in so the bullet spawns below the player, just based on its hierarchy in the tree, but I'm going to call this good enough. Okay, so where the heck was I? What am I working on? Oh, the bullet! Bullet go forward. Bullet go forward is done. Bullet respond to event. That's where we're going. So with the bullet selected, over in the node, we can see the events that it can trigger. Let's take a look at body entered. Let's go ahead and connect to body entered and see how this feels. I think this is one we're going to want to use. So we're just going to put in a print. Bullet hit. And we'll just go body.name. And confirm that this is working. There we go. Now, okay, we got spammed with a bunch of stuff, and maybe we want to get rid of some of these images, some of these messages. I think when I fire, it's actually hitting the player first. Yeah, see that? It's hitting the player. And then it's also hitting asteroids. Now, there's a few things we can do. What we could do is in code over here, right, body entered, I could check to see what type of object we just hit. There's a few different ways. We could check to see like if it's got a script attached to a certain thing. What we could do is we could put things into groups and then check to see group ownership. There's a bunch of different things we can do. I think though the best thing in this particular situation is just to change the object masks. So in the inspectors, any of these physics object has got this little collision folder. So anything with collision object belongs to a layer and has a mask which determines which layers it can intersect with. By default, everything is on layer 1 and interacts with things on layer 1. We might want to specify what would we want to split up? I guess we want to put the player and the asteroids on separate layers, right? That's probably the best thing to do. We can name those as well. I don't remember if there's a shortcut here. Yeah, edit layer names. So we can say this is just like this is sort of the generic layer that everything is on default. Call it default. And then over here we'll have player. Now, that doesn't change it in the view here, but if you mouse over, it will tell you what these nodes are. So everything's going to be on 1 by default. Player is going to be on layer 2 and only on layer 2. So we're going to go to the player object here. We're going to go to collision, and we're just going to move it to layer 2. It's still going to interact with the layer 1, so it means it's still going to collide with asteroids. But then our bullet scene, we're going to change our bullet scene's collision. So it's going to be on layer 1. It doesn't actually, the bullets layer I don't think matters, but we want to make sure it only interacts with the default layer, not the player layer. So if we run this, and I fire, it's no longer sending a message that it's intersecting the player, but it's still hitting asteroids. And the player still bumps into asteroids and still dies. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. So the bullets do not intersect with the player in any way whatsoever, and never registers as a hit. And again, we could still check the logic of what exactly we hit with the bullet over here in our code, but that's good for now. Let's go and remove some of these extra little messages. So the player was hit by, we're going to remove this. And then in main, I guess I can leave the message for player died. I don't know. It's going to become it's pretty obvious when the player dies now. We can see it happen, so it's going to be okay. And then for bullet hit, I guess I can get rid of this as well. Now note again, the bullet hit is reporting these things called rigid body. Only the first asteroid is going to be called asteroid. After that, they're all going to get just different unique names over here. So we could, when we instantiate the asteroids, we could all give them a name, but I believe they have to be unique. So if you put in a duplicate, I think it just defaults to adding a number indicator. So on body entered, what happens when we hit something? Well, I guess the thing to do is to just send a signal, which makes me wonder, are asteroids, any chance they get a signal when they get hit by a bullet? Because we could just change the order. Instead of the bullet triggering something, we can have the asteroid respond to something. I don't know. I think I like the bullet logic, although we might send a signal to the asteroid. Oh, that's a good idea. I kind of like that. What if we define a signal on the asteroid called was shot? Okay. So on the asteroid itself, we're going to have a signal called was shot. And when that happens, we're going to do something. For now, very simply, we're just going to call queue_free, and we're just going to delete ourselves immediately. What we actually want to do is explode into debris. Maybe smaller asteroids or maybe just visual things. But right now, we're just going to delete ourselves when we get shot. And so on our bullet, I think what we can do is we can check for the existence of signals, which should be part of the base node. Let me see here. Yeah, I think like we can just check the signal name. So we can do something like if body was shot. If this is a signal that exists on the thing we hit, then we want to call it. Let's find out if that works. Oh my gosh, it worked. I think we should probably, on our bullet, also get rid of this bullet. We're going to queue free the bullet, because that way we're not going to like be able to penetrate through multiple layers of asteroids. If a bullet hits an asteroid, it goes away itself. But this sends a signal. If something responds to being shot, it tells it, hey, you was shot over here, and then you should do something. Our asteroid should probably do something like have a copy of a smaller version, like Asteroid Big over here. So Asteroid Big is just the asteroid script. We could is it at export? Since type cannot be inferred. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I could specify something. I could specify default, but I think I'd rather just specify a type, which would just be a node, well, something derived from node 2D. I think this is the structure. There we go. All right, so if we do this, we're specifying, we have some variable, some property called debris scene, which should be exported. So if I click on the asteroid, if I go to the inspector, there we go, debris scene. So I can go, let's make a secondary asteroid scene. So my asteroid big scene, I'm going to duplicate it and call it asteroid medium. I'm going to open this up. In asteroid medium, I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to change the artwork. So let me go again to the excellent Kenny file. We're going to grab a different rock. I'll pick a different color as well here. So in my graphics, I'm going to drag in meteor gray medium 1. Ooh. Go in the right place that I expected. There you go. Move it over there. So asteroid medium. So I'm going to change the sprite in asteroid medium to, not that one, that's the same one we had before, to this brown one, or this gray one. I'm going to lower this collision box. But otherwise, the logic is the same. Oh, I guess, I mean, the base node, maybe I'll just rename this to asteroid. There you go. Asteroid sprite. Same thing in asteroid big here. The scene is still called asteroid big, but we'll call the base object just asteroid and asteroid over here, and it's just smaller. So now in asteroid big, the debris scene is going to be asteroid medium. Right. This isn't going to be a node 2D. It's actually going to be a packed scene, I think. There we go. Okay, asteroid big has got in its debris scene set this. And this is something I do in a lot of things that I do. And what I want to do is when we get shot, we're still going to go and delete our cells. But before that happens, we're going to say, if we have a debris scene, then what we're going to do is we're going to instantiate it. Whoops. The position of this new scene is going to be equal to our own global position. And our parent. There we go. So whatever the parent of a current asteroid is, we're going to add the new asteroid, the new debris. Now, this debris could be an asteroid, which in this case, for the big asteroid, it's a medium asteroid. But the medium asteroid, when it dies, it could just explode into some like particles that dissipate. The debris can be anything. The important thing is when this thing dies, it's going to spawn something, which may be important for the game or may just be visual eye candy. But either way, it's going to spawn something on death. Let's see if this works. So in theory, if I shoot you, there you go. And then the small ones, they don't have a debris one, so they just disappear. Now, classically in Asteroid, things tend to die and leave more than one debris behind, which I propose we export var debris amount. And I mean, we could force this to an integer, but if I just set it to an integer, like 2, then it'll contextually know. And then what we're going to do instead is do a loop here. So if debris scene is not null, then for I in debris amount, generate a certain number of children and put in the colon, which I will always forget. So now, if we shoot, we should get 2 rocks. Awkward, because I keep dying here. Boom, boom. Now, what we could also do is do a random range. Like maybe it should do 1 to 3 debris. I'll leave those things as an exercise to the viewer. Also, when we spawn into the middle of an asteroid, maybe we can shove them out of the way. Again, we're supposed to have some invulnerability frames on respawn, so it's maybe not the end of the world. Just get out of there ASAP before you die in an endless loop. Okay, so hang on. Where does that bring us? Shooting. More area 2D goodness, because our bullets are area 2Ds. We break up asteroids. Gosh, only thing left to do is user interface stuff. Well, that's excellent. Well, I'm going to take a little bit of a break between episodes here. This has all been recorded back to back to back. And I need to practice on the user interface stuff because it's actually something I haven't poked around with as much. And I want to make sure it doesn't get confuzzigating. So thank you very much again for continuing to watch this series. I appreciate very much that you're doing that. As always, again, with the YouTube algorithm the way it is, if you can drop a like, if you drop a comment, it makes a huge difference. Subscribe if you haven't. Massively helpful. And I'll see you next time for user interface things. Bye-bye.